A surprise announcement, but a very welcome surprise announcement, is that Karting Superstars is a game that exists. It's not quite a direct sequel to Circuit Superstars, but it's set in the same universe, and with the big change here being that you're focusing on karts, the other big change is that it's no longer top-down, it's chase cam. There's a demo that has been released. I've been playing it for the last 45 minutes or so, and I've got some very positive initial impressions, with a couple of caveats thrown in there too. So I just wanted to do a quick video showing you some of the gameplay around the brand new circuit that has been put out for time trial. There's no race mode in this demo, it's purely time trial. But it gets you to grips with the physics and the way how this game's going to handle, and I have to say I'm immensely impressed with the way how it's all been put together. Firstly, the kart. How does it handle? It's grippy, it's predictable, it makes sense with a controller. I was playing with an Xbox controller, and it follows the same standard of Circuit Superstars where you're going to have to drive professionally, but it's predictable in a Simcadian fashion. So what I mean by that is that brake always brakes steadily. If you're going to turn in, there's enough grip so that you can throw and manhandle the kart around, and it feels a bit more physical this time. Whereas Circuit Superstars, the cars where you're looking from a top-down perspective, felt a little bit more like, not that you was drifting, but it felt a little bit more elegant. The karts feel much more, I'm going to say, brutish and visceral, and that's because as you bounce over the curbs and this new track, which reminds me of the Kyoto track from Gran Turismo. It's got lots of curb bouncing going on in the first sector, and so you get to really see the physics of the suspension geometry of how the kart kind of bounces around, and how if you've not got all four wheels touching the concrete at one time, you're probably going to run into an issue. The kart will kind of wobble bounce off and you'll lose momentum that way. If you stick a wheel on the dirt, it's very easy for the kart to start kind of skidding out slightly and losing control, and so it's just a loss of time over and over again. It also follows that slow in fast out approach, so in my first few laps around I was noticing that I had enough grip to kind of wall of death it round the outside of some of the tight hairpins, but it's not the fastest way, and so a little bit of either fingering and feathering off the throttle or a little quick stab of the brake before you kind of throw the car in makes a much quicker lap time, and so you'll start to get up to grips of all of that, whilst also taking possibly some liberties with track limits, because they seem to be quite generous at the moment with this track. Obviously it's just a demo, I'm sure that'll get tightened up later on in release. The new track itself has 4 different variants, a full and a club, and forward and reverse for each. I really like the way how this track feels. As I said before, it reminds me of the Kyoto track from the Gran Turismo series, but it's got like a real flick-flack feel of what like real kart circuits feel like. And a lot of the circuits that are on Circuit Superstars that I've seen in like gameplay video demos, it looks like some of them have been ported across to this. I think they've chosen the ones that feel most kartish versus the ones that feel more Grand Prix circuity, and that makes sense. The chase cam perspective took a little bit of getting used to, but I feel like they've got the exact right balance of where the camera should be. I would ideally love to see some kind of helmet cam put into this game, but I don't believe that's in scope for it, because it's all been about have the chase cam. And the kind of like aha with that as well is that you get to create your own colours for your helmet, overalls and kart, and there's lots of different liveries to choose from, and I have to say the graphics of the kart especially look a real step up from what Circuit Superstars' more low poly aesthetic looks like, and I adore that aesthetic, but this is a step towards realism, and that also gets borne out by the fact that the drivers now have more human proportions. My overwhelming feedback for Karting Superstars is I absolutely love it and I can't wait for more. I'm also really pleased that there's a focus on asphalt racing, because what I felt with Circuit Superstars was it dipped its toe into so many different genres, but then provided minimal content for them, that it kind of spread itself perhaps a little bit too thin, and could have doubled down perhaps on less disciplines but more content on them, and this feels like a step in the right direction to provide that for karts. If I was to provide critical feedback, though, beyond that, it would be that the karts reach top speed quite quickly, and I think that slow in and fast out approach would be better adopted if karts took a little bit longer to get up to top speed, because you'd be more incentivised to take the racing line and then floor the throttle at the earliest opportunity, rather than trying to wall and def it and not really lose too much speed because you're not scrubbing off enough, if that makes sense. Now, I have no karting experience beyond a couple of fun days, so I'm a total armchair novice compared to people, and like 2 of the team that are building this game have been like semi-professional karters, so I will bow to their knowledge and expertise. But from a gaming perspective, I feel like that would be better, particularly as this feels like if you've got 12 karts all going at it together and you're all reaching the same top speed really quickly, there's potential here for it to be a Rubbins Racing NASCAR approach, and it's more aggressive and more physical. I'm not sure that quite gels as well with the much more respectful community that Circuit Superstars provided. Speaking of community, and this is less around the game itself, but more around how this sits in the Superstars universe, for want of a better phrase. And this is, I think there probably needs to be some comms to explain why this isn't something that could just be dropped into Circuit Superstars and the approach behind that. I'm aiming this feedback pretty much around people that will take the cheap shot, but sometimes quite reasonable shot of saying, this is a reskin, why am I buying the same or expected to buy the same game twice? And they'll say that because it looks and feels very similar. Some of the tracks carry across from Circuit Superstars to Karting Superstars, but it's in a different view, and they'll just go, well, just change the camera, and not understand all of the ramifications behind that. They won't understand, and frankly gamers don't need to understand, the developmental issues and problems of unpicking projects, previous code, if you ported a game to multiple systems, what that then does to everything as it goes along, because you're basically solving the same or building the same thing multiple times over, which slows down dev work and all of that kind of stuff. It's really difficult to do that when you're a small indie studio, and I think we need to be cognizant of that it's a 5-person team, 3 siblings, battling against some industry titans and giants when you've got iRacing that pays for you to breathe on its server, where you've got people like Motorsport Games that just seem to chew and spit out hundreds of thousands of pounds just willy-nilly. You have to take decisions that enable you to have commercial success and commercial continuation so that you can then make those creative decisions and take on those creative projects as you go. So whether that's why Karting Superstars need to be standalone, whether it's a technical element, whether it's a combination of the both, I think some communications and chatting with the community would go a long way to just kind of going, this is a state of play, this is what it's like. And as an indie creator, I totally get where indie developers are, because sometimes you have to look after the bottom line to enable you to survive, to make that passion project exactly how you want it to. Because frankly, a passion project sometimes doesn't pay the bills, doesn't put food on the table, doesn't put a roof over your head. And so you need to make sensible decisions rather than the creative ones that you desperately love to. It's also why we need to support developers like this too. So I'll be definitely picking up Karting Superstars on day one, based on purely the gameplay alone. This is a chef's kiss to karting for me. But I hope that random ramble, I might have to cut some of that out of the video. But I hope it makes sense, because I think we live in this world of has and has-nots. And this is a has-nots studio taking on the has. And I think on almost all counts, from a gameplay perspective, it's a has. So yeah, look after yourselves, take care, download the demo and see for yourself. Bye-bye.